Citizen Weekend with Olive Ballows.
A very good evening to you. Welcome to Citizen Weekend. And tonight, together with my panelists, we ask the question, Jubilant, friend or foe? The highlights.
We are anticipating that by next week, end of next week, all our schools, all our 2,000 schools will have received their capitation.
Another week, another promise. Education PS Julius Bitok confirms only 3,000 schools have received capitation funds due to ongoing verification of accounts in schools.
Ni jukumu ya ODPP aweze kuonesha Wakenya CCTV ya kuonesha mimi nilikuwa hiyo Outback.
Out and about unfettered. Isiolo governor brushes off DPP order for his arrest, saying he has a court order restraining his arrest.
As it is, we have teething problems that are being addressed by the donors.
Putting up a brave face. Haiti mission commander defends mission amid funding logistical concerns raised with the UN. Limited cover and out-of-pocket expenses. A cancer patient's growing list of challenges with the Social Health Authority's medical cover. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Yula Nzale. Isiolo Governor Abdi Hassan, also known as Guyo, has denied being at the scene of crime where the office of the Director of Public Prosecutions says the Isiolo County Chief Executive Officer for Health, Abdirahman Mohammed, was abducted. The DPP, while directing the DCI to arrest the Isiolo Governor and 7 others, said CCTV evidence placed Governor Guyo at the scene of the kidnap at Outbreak Hotel in Manzoni, Machakos, where he allegedly instructed his men to abduct Abdirahman at the height of the impeachment process. And that was in June. Stephen Leto reports that the Isiolo governor is still a free man with the DCI yet to effect the ODPP's directive.
Hours after the ODPP issued a directive for the DCI to arrest Isiolo Governor Abdi Guyo, the DCI is yet to effect it. The Isiolo Governor, for the better part of Saturday, spent his day at his office in Nairobi and dismissed the ODPP letter that placed him at the scene of crime.
I was not in Outback. Yeah. And I had no reason to go to Outback. Yeah. The DPP should produce the CCTV. He should produce my phone, showing that it has placed me on the scene of crime.
The Isiolo governor, who is fighting a storm in his county following a failed impeachment bid, said he is yet to record a statement on the matter. Citizen TV is in possession of a letter from Lawrence Mulatia, who is the officer crime Kyumbi DCI in Machakos, summoning the Isiolo governor to record a statement on the 24th of August. Governor Guyo did not honor the summons. Instead, the Isiolo governor quickly rushed to the Kiambu High Court seeking anticipatory bail and told the court that the respondents had abused their constitutional offices by failing to undertake impartial, independent investigations and instead had resorted to harassing the petitioners. The Kiambu High Court granted Governor Guyo the orders barring anybody from arresting, harassing, charging or otherwise interfering with the case pending the hearing and determination his application on the matters to do with the alleged offense of robbery with violence contrary to section 2962 of the Penal Code and the offense of kidnapping contrary to section 259 of the Penal Code.
I don't understand how DPP can use an allegation from my opponent even before getting my official statement. As we are speaking now, I have not written a statement. And I don't understand how DPP approves that charges without our statement.
Governor Guyo says that on the day the MCAs met at Manzoni, he was away. The ODPP affirmed, saying CCTV footage from the Outback Hotel in Manzoni placed Guyo at the crime scene.
Hiyo siku mimi nilitoka Nakuru nikaelekea kwangu straight. Na nafikiri kama nilikuwa Outback, ni jukumu ya ODPP aweze kuonesha Wakenya CCTV ya kuonesha mimi nilikuwa hiyo Outback, ama CCTV ya Expressway ya kuonesha gari langu.
DCI officials say they are yet to receive the ODPP's directive and cannot act without proper instructions. It raises questions given that the file had to have come from DCI, which is the investigating agency. The office of the ODPP says the Isiolo governor, alongside 5 others, will face charges of robbery with violence and abductions. Stephen Leto, Citizen TV.
On matters education, the ministry has confirmed that only 3,000 out of more than 32,000 registered public schools in the country have so far received capitation due to an ongoing verification exercise. As you'll hear now from Crispin Otieno, stakeholders are now expressing their frustration over the delays even as students remain in school.
We are live.
Barely 3 weeks after the Ministry of Education announced that capitation funds had been released to all schools across the country, it has emerged that only 3,000 out of 32,000 schools have received the said funds as of Saturday afternoon. According to Education Principal Secretary Professor Julius Bitok, the delay is due to ongoing verification of financial documents from schools nationwide, meant to examine whether they tally with the number of students per school. Education Ministry officials and data experts are currently camped at the Teachers Training College in Machakos County to oversee the audit.
And I've asked the team here to work throughout the weekend to ensure that we wire the money as soon as possible. We are anticipating that by next week, end of next week, all our schools, all our 32,000 schools will have received their capitation.
Secondary schools are faring better among schools that have submitted their documents.
I want to say that most of the schools which have been cleared are from the secondary school, more than 1,200, followed by junior school, about 600, and the ones which are coming behind are primary school, largely because of connectivity issues and the fact that the infrastructure at primary level is a little bit lower.
PS Bitok's assurance has done little to ease the anxiety among public school heads, many of who say they have reached breaking point. Unions too are raising red flags.
The moment you continue delaying, especially the day schools, we are injuring learning of those institutions. We have the suppliers, we have the BOM teachers, we have those who are employed by the board of management, and everything is at a standstill in our institutions.
Among documents schools are expected to present before capitation include Unique Personal Identifier, UPI, which contains birth certificate of every learner, the school registration number, certified bank account details through the sub-county education offices. For schools, it will be another week of waiting for government funds, perhaps with the hope that this week lives up to the promise. Crispin Otieno, Citizen TV.
The multinational security support mission to Haiti Force Commander Godfrey Otunge, who returned to the country on Friday night, has sought to downplay the challenges faced by his officers less than a week after Kennedy Mutuku Nzuve was killed in a road accident during a towing operation. In communication to the UN Security Council, however, Kenya's mission detailed crippling logistical challenges as flagged by the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres in February. On a wing and a prayer. For his family, Otunge's return to Kenya on Friday night was nothing short of triumphant.
When the president directed that we go to Haiti, people were so much hesitant that Kenyans are going to die in Haiti. But I can assure you that we are here. You can see me as the force commander. I think the decision of our president to decide that at least we go and support our African country in the Caribbean was a wise decision. And as of today, we are very much happy and we are proud of what we've done.
Men and women who have committed themselves.
While the Kenya-led security mission to Haiti may have won some battles, the verdict is clear. They are fast losing the war on gangs.
As it is, we have teething problems that are being addressed by the donors.
What Otunge has described as teething problems have meant the difference not only between success and failure of the mission, but have had life and death implications for Kenya's police officers.
The second officer that has died is the one on Sunday. We had a road accident that died as a result of a road accident. He's called Corporal Kennedy Nzube, and we are preparing on how to bring his body back home. The third one is the missing in action.
Kenyan officers who have borne the weight of the mission are burdened by vehicles donated by the US, ill-suited to the environment in which they operate. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres in February having raised concerns over personnel safety. Corporal Kennedy Mutokunzuve died on Sunday in an accident in which 2 civilians and 8 other MSS officers were injured, 3 of them critically, in a recovery operation. The accident occurring as one Max Pro combat vehicle towed another that suffered mechanical failure. In a note verbal to the UN Security Council in July, Kenya's mission raised safety and logistical concerns, including contractual rigidity that does not allow contracted mechanics to move out of their base camp to repair or give out spare parts to MSS mechanics to recover damaged vehicles. This leads to paying charges of up to $10,000 to tow a single vehicle. Kenya writing to the UN Security Council that a significant shortcoming is in the lack of sufficient numbers of operational equipment and vehicles that support the officers. Currently, the force commander can only deploy up to 200 officers at a time. Furthermore, the diplomatic communication continues to read, as attested to by the UN Secretary General, available vehicles have limited agility, leading to exposure of officers during operations. If that were not enough, Kenya advised the UN Security Council that the MSS does not have armored ambulances and have had to improvise troop-carrying vehicles to retrieve officers injured in theatre. In previous communication, Kenya threatened to pull out of the mission unless funding and the attendant logistical shortfalls were addressed. An attempt to transition the mission to a UN peacekeeping mission failed. The US has indicated that the present mission will be replaced with a new force whose logistical funding will be guaranteed by the United Nations. Olive Burrows, Citizen TV. Patients in need of specialized treatment, such as cancer and chronic illness care, have expressed dissatisfaction with the Social Health Authority health insurance services. In Kisii and Nakuru counties, patients have decried out-of-pocket expenses after exhausting the SHA cover. Miriam Nyambura has more.
In Ekiendege, Bonchari, Kisii County, Mikai's family is under immense strain caring for 2 children aged 9 and 15, both battling sickle cell disease. One of them requires a bone marrow transplant in India, which costs millions of shillings. The family says the funds allocated under SHA have been depleted and they are now required to bear the treatment burden themselves.
Tukaambiwa na daktari ya kwamba the only permanent solution to this condition ni mtoto afanyiwe bone marrow transplant, BMT expert. Ndiye akaniambia from administration, the letter we are given by the government, which is the guarantee of payment, India does not accept because wanasema serikali ya Kenya haiwalipi hiyo pesa. They agree, they commit themselves, but at the end of the day they don't.
The children in grade 2 and 5 cannot resume their education as the illness has taken a toll on them. The family has raised 700,000 shillings in contributions, but the funds are insufficient.
So saizi, the facilities in India, they are facing off SHA. So I'm worried, nitakimbia wapi? Nitachanga pesa wapi? Na huyu mtoto mahali amefikia sasa hivi, like every day she has a painful crisis in her body every day.
Tukiomba msaada kwa ndugu, marafiki na wale watu wote wataguswa na hili.
In Nakuru County, 64-year-old Rose Wanjiko, a vendor at the Wakulima market, is in a similar predicament. Despite having SHA cover, she's paying for her breast cancer treatment out of pocket. all because she has exhausted her SHA coverage for cancer tests.
Munalipa SHA, munarudi munalipa shilingi 460, munarudi munalipa 7,000. Munaambio tena mulipe dawa 10,760. Sasa mimi ninashanga hii pesa mtu atatoaga wapi?
The Nakuru Teaching and Referral Hospital Management says SHA only covers 4,300 shillings for a cancer-related test and only up to 4 tests a year, after which patients like Rose are informed they must pay for services.
Mambo ya kukopa utatoa wapi? Nani atakubali unamkopa kila siku? Hakuna mtu atakubali. Kwa hivyo mimi ningeulizwa, ningesema ya kwamba hizo pesa ziondolewe ndio watu waweze kutibiwa.
Maria Nyambura, Citizen TV.
The ruling United Democratic Alliance, UDA, has issued Leonard Muthende with a direct nomination to contest in the Mbeere North constituency by-election on November the 27th. Deputy President Professor Kithure Kindiki, who presided over the endorsement of Muthende as the party's flag bearer in Mbeere North, Embu County, lauded the youth for demanding good governance, transparency and accountability from leaders entrusted with positions to serve the nation. Sathalale with the details.
Leonard Muthende will fly UDA's flag during the Mbeere North November 27th parliamentary by-election. Muthende's endorsement reportedly came after 7 aspirants from the same party stepped down at a ceremony presided over by Deputy Party Leader Kithure Kindiki during a meeting of grassroots leaders from Mbeere North constituency at Karambari Center in Muminji Ward, Embu County.
Hii si kupangwa. Ni kweli si kweli? Ni tutam si tutam. Ni tutam si tutam. Ni bwekse si bwekse.
Ni Mungu tu amekusaidia hawa wanaume wakakusikiza, because everybody is a leader in their own right. Si namna hiyo? So work with them as equal partners. You're just the first among equals. Kweli si kweli?
The Deputy Party Leader announcing that Muthende will officially be handed the UDA nomination certificate next week when he will be officially unveiled. Former area MP Charles Muriuki, who was among the 8 contestants for the UDA party primaries who stepped down, has been tasked with leading the campaign secretariat for the UDA by-election candidate.
Wote wanane hao ndio wataongoza campaign secretariat. The National Campaign Secretariat itaongozwa na wale ambao walikuwa wanataka kusimama na chama chetu.
DP Kindiki urged the youth from Mbeere North constituency, drawn from university, college, TVETs, artists, musicians and small-scale traders, not to relent in demanding good governance, transparency and accountability from leaders entrusted with positions to serve the nation. Seth Olale, Citizen TV.
Welcome, Mr. Deputy President.
Tonight, members of parliament allied to the government are telling parents in the country that capitation to schools for the 3rd term has been delayed due to the ongoing fight against graft. The MPs who led a border empowerment exercise in Mboni, Makueni County, want school heads who seem defiant in resubmitting learners' data from their institutions to do so promptly, lest they're left to run the institutions without money. As you'll hear now from Kamau Mwangi, their counterparts who were in Keses in Uasin Gishu want Kenyans to dismiss DCP leader Rigathi Gachagwa's style of politics.
As schools in the country grapple with lack of funds due to delayed disbursement of capitation for the 3rd term, leaders have now placed the cash crunch crisis solely on the shoulders of school heads in the country. Speaking in Mboni, Makueni County, legislators allied to the Kenya Kwanza administration argue that no school in the country would be complaining of lack of money to run schools had school heads resubmitted learners' data as requested by the Ministry of Education as government embarks on cleaning up learner data.
Mwache changamoto. Out of 32,000, only 3,000 peke yake ndio wameweza kusubmit. Wewe unataka kuhangaisha wananchi kwa nini? Alafu unaweka lawama kwa minister wa education. Tunasema wakubwa wa elimu, muharakishe hiyo verification haraka iwezekanavyo, ndivyo watoto wetu waweze kupata pesa.
The data verification exercise, they say, has been initiated as part of the war against corruption in government institutions, warning that those defiant risk running down the centers of learning.
Ndio tuweze kupigana na mambo ya corruption katika nchi na tukue sincere. Hii mambo yote ya usafi isafishwe mahali popote pale ambapo kunaweza kuwa na dalili ya corruption. And the education sector is not going to be left behind.
The leaders took a swipe at the opposition for what they termed as empty rhetoric meant to derail President Ruto. Their sentiments were echoed miles away in cases where their counterparts warned Kenyans against falling for politics as espoused by former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua.
Sasa kama wanapigania mtu kuwa katibu wa chama SG, wataweza kukubaliana wataongoza bendera ya Kenya? Au watu wa upinzani wako na mpangilio?
Shame on you, those who think that Kenya will be divided. You cannot divide the country so that you gain by talking to your community.
Kamau Mwangi, Citizen TV.
In Vihiga County, Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen has called for urgent reinforcements by the IG to flush out criminal gangs, warning that the spread of gang culture across Western Kenya is no longer confined to urban centers, but is creeping into the villages. Murkomen sounded the alarm on the growing security concerns as he addressed a Jukwaa la Usalama forum in Vihiga County. The Interior Cabinet Secretary said that while the threat of criminal gangs may not be as severe in Vihiga as is the case in Nairobi and neighboring counties, the emergence of groups such as the Reggae Boys and Nduthi culture is raising eyebrows.
The problem of gangs and goons is not as bad as the 3 other counties, but it is there. In this county, you have some groups calling themselves Reggae Boys, and the other group that calls itself Nduthi Culture. There has been also a group called 42 Brothers. In the next county, it's 47 Brothers. In Busia, it's called 18 Brothers. It is turning out to become a kind of a security threat. Gangs in other counties are only confined in urban areas. But gangs generally in Western region are all the way to villages. We want the Inspector General to boost the teams that are on the ground here by sending more officers to come and help in doing an operation in the entire region to help flush out these gangs.
We take a break on Citizen Weekend, but on the other side, we get into the conversation on Jubaland. Friend or foe? This is who I have in studio. We have Anwar Abdi Fatah Bashir, who is the Executive Director of the East African Institute for Peace and Governance, and we'll also have joining us virtually, Hassan Kanenje, Dr. Hassan Kanenje, who is the Director of the Horn Institute. Lots to look forward to. An invasive foreign force in Kenya, an ally or just crying wolf? We talk the issue of reports of the presence of Jubaland forces in Kenya after this break. Exactly is happening in Mandera. Are Jubaland forces operating on Kenyan soil? Citizen TV's Ben Kiri traveled to Mandera in search of answers.
Amid the confusion and tension that has gripped Mandera in recent days, life in many parts of the county appears to be proceeding normally. Businesses remain open and learning activities continue uninterrupted. At Border Point 1 Primary and Junior School, classes are ongoing, learners engaged in morning lessons. Morning class sessions have just ended and learners are on a short break ahead of lunch hour. This is contrary to reports alleging that Jubaland forces from Somalia had turned this school into their training camp.
Since the beginning of the term, this school had no issues, and in fact the school has been running very well. In Mandera, what we have is 68 secondary schools and 368 primary schools. All the schools I can confirm to you are very operational.
Shule haijawahi kuwa mkazi wa askari wala haijawahi kuwa mkazi wa kundi lolote.
Who exactly are these forces? What is their relationship with Kenya? And do they pose a threat? The answer, at least historically, appears to be no. Jubaland security forces are, in many ways, a product of Kenyan strategy. Since 2014, Kenya has played a pivotal role in the formation, training, and funding of these forces to establish a stable buffer zone along the border to counter the persistent threat from armed groups operating in Somalia.
We come here, we try to curb the enemy, and it's the Al-Shabaab. Then you don't choose to say which kind of neighbor you are bordering, because our job here is to ensure the security of our people in Mandera. And things about the other side, we don't know about them. So what we concentrate on is to make sure that the people around there are safe. And actually we have been able to do that to them.
Concerns remain among Mandera residents, particularly when violence erupts between Somali's federal forces and the Jubaland administration.
Amani si mbaya. Sasa hiyo Jubaland walikuwa wanapigana huko kwao. Sisi tulisikia tu fununu wako hapa, lakini tujaona.
We encountered a few Jubaland forces patrolling near the border. They said Kenya remains a friendly nation, emphasizing they have no intention of interfering with activities inside the country.
Border ya Kenya iko na karibu. Kenya ni jirani, ni heshima, bande wa Somali, wa jeshi ya Jubaland, bande wa Somalia. Lakini bande ya huko ni salama tu. Hauna kuingia na shida.
The government continues to downplay reports of foreign troop presence, attributing it to a spillover from ongoing instability in Somalia. Ben Kirui, Citizen TV, Mandera County.
All right, let's get some insight from the experts. And joining us virtually, we have Dr. Hassan Kanenje, who is the director of the Horn Institute. And we're also joined in studio by Anwar Abdifatah Bashir, who is executive director of the East African Institute for Peace and Governance. Good to have you in studio this evening. While it's in contest that the Jubaland forces, I believe they're called Davish forces, have crossed into Kenya, and whether or not they pose a threat, what is not in contest is that there is some fighting happening across the border. Perhaps you can give us some context of what is happening in Jubaland.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Regarding on the subject matter, I think there has been a conflict between the Somali federal government and Jubaland state for the last 1 year and a half. But the current conflict is leading by a guy called Channon, who's a general, and he created another conflict within Jubaland state, especially the Gedo region. So at the first time, there was a heated conflict between Fila Somalia and Jubaland, especially President Ahmed Obe, and there was a Bircheh conflict, which was Waterloo, and was defeated by the federal force at that moment. So this one is another trial to at least destabilize in Jubaland. So that's the context currently. And the government is using this notorious Abdirashid Janan to destabilize Jubaland. And he's acting that he's fighting against the administration in Kismayo.
Why would they be seeking to destabilize Jubaland? You mean the federal government of Somalia?
Yes. Now the current federal president, President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, it's not the first time that he went a conflict with Jubaland, but his first term in 2013, he started like this kind of conflict in order to get some political gains, but he veiled at that moment drastically. So now Hassan Sheikh 2.0 is also employing that kind of policies which didn't work before, and now it's not working for him again.
2.0 is who, Farmajo?
No, I'm talking about Hassan.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's hear from you, Dr. Kanenje. Kenya has had a relationship with Jubaland, I believe, since Kismayo was captured. Perhaps you can give us some context on how has the relationship been? Was it a relationship of convenience?
Yeah, you know, Kismayu is an important region in Somalia, but also it's a region that, of course, borders Kenya, which makes it important, you know, not just to the Kenyan government, but generally to the regional campaign when it comes to, you know, fighting terror, considering that, you know, Jubaland was also once really a fertile ground, you know, for Al-Shabaab, where they had established massive presence. Now, increasingly, what we have seen is there's been engagement between Nairobi and Mogadishu. And so the relationship, I think, needs to be understood within the context, one, of the relation that exists with the federal government in Mogadishu. But at the same time, the kind of challenges that, of course, emanate from federal member states, such as what we're seeing in Jubaland right now. And we understand that, you know, Kenya has had its men and women in uniform operating in some of these theaters for a very long time as part of the African, you know, Union, you know, peacekeeping missions. And so to the extent that perhaps, you know, it's looked at, you know, to the exclusion of, I think, the state of Somalia probably is going to be a mistake. We understand that there's been a lot of political hyperbole over perhaps what may be seen as a relationship, you know, that excludes Mogadishu, but actually that's not exactly the case. It's just some of the realities that exist on the ground that, you know, first of all, it is important to pay attention to what is happening closer home, as well as, you know, working with the recognized government, of course, in Mogadishu to ensure that. But I think one of the things that I think has provoked a lot of this debate is because of the uneasy relations that has existed, especially between the federal government as well as federal member states. But in Kenya's interest, and I think regional countries, what has become apparent is that they're interested in maintaining one Somalia, and not exactly, you know, trying to balkanize it. Now, that does not mean they do not, of course, also deal with some of the peculiar, perhaps, interests of federal member states, which are part of the Somali constitution. And I think that is provided for. But so these should actually be understood within that framework of not mutually exclusive, you know, aspects of federal member states and the federal government, but as part of actually dealing with the whole problem of instability in Somalia.
All right, so this is not the first time we're witnessing this. In 2020, there was conflict after Madobe was elected for the second time. There was an expectation that he would not run for a third time. He did so and won, I believe, in November last year. How much of this has to do with elections?
I think at macro level, since Somalia takes the federal system, there has been always a conflict between the center and the peripheries. But exclusively, Jubaland has been facing an isolated hostilities from Phil of Somalia in Mogadishu. So at that moment, the one you mentioned in 2020 was leading by the former president, Farmajo. So he had issues with the leadership of Jubaland. So at that moment, he employed to travel ban the officials, restriction of civilian movements, not giving the budget allocation for Jubaland. So now currently the same counterproductive policies is used by the current administration, which is leading by President Hassan Sheikh.
Okay. Yeah. So there's been debate around whether Madobe was constitutionally elected for a third term, but given there was a two-term limit, but then I read that the parliament changed the law on that. So how do we resolve that conflict?
I think it's not just exclusive to Ahmed Madobe, but if you look at the leaders of the federal member states, each one of them, they changed the constitution, they reviewed it, and they made a possibility that they can run for third or fourth times. So I think it's part of that issue, but also there is some isolated cases with it's exclusive to Jubaland and also Puntland regarding on the federal government. Somalia currently is federal member states are 6, including the newly established northeastern region. 3 of them are loyal to the federal government, not because they like the policies, but also they cannot survive without the support of the federal government in Mogadishu. But Jubaland and Puntland are relatively independent, relatively have the resources, so that's why every government that takes the seat, they engage immediately a conflict with them. So the issue is beyond the constitutional review, is beyond a competition between and within the leaders of the federal member state. But also the macro level is, since Jubaland was established in 2013, there has been an isolated hostility emanating from the federal government. Hassan Sheikh 1.0, Farmacho, and the current administration, Hassan Sheikh 2.0. So that's a reality.
What is it, a power struggle?
Somehow it looks like a power struggle, but also there is an element of making them loyal 100% to Fila Somali, which they resist.
Okay. All right. Dr. Kanenje, where do Kenya and Ethiopia then come in? Because both of them are participating in the AU mission there, but in 2020, Kenya was viewed as being pro-Jubaland, and Ethiopia was viewed as being pro the federal administration.
Yes, Olive, in 2020, I think that was partly and largely actually informed by the internal politics what's going on in Somalia, especially in the light of the upcoming elections, which ended up again being postponed by the former President Farmajo. And I think Kenya became a convenient punching bag in that context. Now, it was also at a time when there was, really lack of consensus within Somalia itself. Remember, as Anwar has underscored, there is a lot of tension between sometimes the centers and the periphery. Now, unfortunately, what we're seeing right now is also a reflection of actually, the disagreement over the upcoming election, in which, for instance, at least, some member states such as Puntland and Jubaland, they have not exactly agreed to the kind of framework that's being suggested from the center. Now, that is something that, Somalia itself, of course, has to solve, and no one can be able to interfere in that internal dynamic. What, of course, countries such as Kenya or Ethiopia can do is simply to support efforts towards reconciliation, but also to ensure that there's an agreement or consensus, because Somalia's stability it's extremely important to both Kenya and Ethiopia. And so there are no, outside any stated, arrangements or positions by both governments, I think any other thing will be mere speculation, because things as they stand right now, it appears, at least those of us outside, that both, Nairobi in particular and Addis Ababa, they're keen to ensuring that there is, a united Somalia, especially considering, in fact, in the light of the agreement or that was arranged or rather reached after the Turkish mediation, following the disagreement over the MOU, with Somaliland. And so what is out there today, it's actually a recognition of that unitary, Somalia. Of course, that does not exclude the reality is that, sometimes you're having regional countries deal with certain aspects of federal member states, both from Somaliland, all through to Jubaland as well as others.
All right. So, Dr. Kanenje, lastly from you, what then does this mean for the war against Al-Shabaab?
I think Al-Shabaab must be celebrating where they are, and they're having a pretty good day, in fact, this past week or so, in part because any time there is a chasm or these divisions or an appearance of conflict between federal member states and the federal government in Somalia, then Al-Shabaab can only win. And so it is extremely disturbing, especially in the light of the increased funding, to the AWESOM mission, but also decreasing interest in trying to support the Somalia's effort to stabilize, as well as bridge the gap that exists between federal member states and federal government. And so the fight against Al-Shabaab is only going to be made more complicated as a result of these kind of conflicts. However, there is still light at the end of the tunnel, and I think regional countries, including Kenya, have a role, as well as Ethiopia and IGAD, to play in trying to, calm, and reduce the temperatures that have contributed to this kind of conflagration.
All right. And lastly for you, Anwar, what do you make of this statement by Joshua Meservey, Senior Fellow, Hudson Institute? He appeared before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. And this is what, earlier this year, and this is what he said: state building in Somalia is a failed experiment. Clan remains the fundamental ordering principle of Somalia's society, making a strong central government unworkable. Yet Washington has spent over a decade trying to make just such a system work in Mogadishu. Instead, Washington should work directly with those federal member states and other sources of authority that are friendly and have enough legitimacy and competence to degrade Al-Shabaab.
Before I respond to that question, let me also second Professor Hassan on Al-Shabaab revival in some regions in the country, especially Middle Shabelle, not because of they are getting stronger and stronger, but because of the government from the two levels are engaged unnecessary conflicts. So that's where they're benefiting and they are getting stronger and stronger. To come to the last question, I heard and also I read it, the statement, but I didn't accept it as it is, and I reject it as a statement, and it reflects the long-standing U.S. policy of dual-track policy and balkanization. But if the current federal government persists, it is unilateral decisions, including revision of the Constitution, unilateral electoral commission, and so on, then as a last result, that statement will be inevitable. And not only Washington, but also other international partners should deal with differently the center and the peripheries.
All right, so you're saying ultimately consensus is the best way forward. All right, I want to thank my guests. In studio, we had Anwar Abdi Fatah Bashir, who is Executive Director of the East African Institute for Peace and Governance. And joining us virtually, we've had Dr. Hassan Kanenje, who is the Director of the Horn Institute. We take a break, but Citizen Weekend continues on the other side. New training for textile workers. Details after the break. Students at the University of Nairobi's Kikuyu campus have protested rising cases of insecurity in the area. This comes 4 days after a third-year student was allegedly killed by his fellow by stabbing over ablution block disagreement. Student leaders who said the institution fraternity is still mourning the death of Brian Wambui, who was stabbed, have appealed to the police for security assurance in and out of the premises. They have as well called for support, especially on mental health.
We are now demanding as students that all the residents where our students reside and they're paying rents in these places, we want a maximum security.
Once a first-year student has joined school, it's not the end of providing for that student until he or she graduates.
Address this issue of mental health in campus, because most of the comrades here are suffering in many things like depression, and so we want these organizations to come.
Kenya's textile workers are set to benefit from a new textile training school that will be established by the Chinese at the Tom Mboya Labour College in Kisumu. This is valued at over 200 million shillings. A delegation from the All Chinese Federation of Trade Unions, Guangzhou Province, led by Canton Chairman Kenya Xian Weijian and Canton Vice Chairman Jojo Zeng, paid KOTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli a courtesy call at his Bofa Ocean View home in Kilifi County to discuss the initiative. The partnership follows Atwoli's visit to China in May of 2025, aimed at strengthening international solidarity, with ACFTU and KOTU agreeing to collaborate closely on key issues affecting both countries. The Chinese delegation also donated table tennis equipment to the Tomboya Labour College.
So we want to thank our brothers and sisters in that country for the efforts they have made to supplement our efforts to develop this country. We thank you very much and we welcome you.
Final lap. Kenya's stars sharpen skills onto
Sports News brought to you by back your favorite team as they battle for glory in the Total Energies CAF African Nations Championship 2024 right here on home soil.
Kenya's athletics team is putting in the final touches at Ulinzi Sports Complex in Nairobi, stepping up preparations for the 2025 World Championships in Tokyo. Both athletes and coaches say they're brimming with confidence and determination ahead of the global showpiece. The residential camp has brought together sprinters and middle distance runners focusing on endurance, speed and tactical sharpness. Under the guidance of coach Stephen Mwaniki, the team has been drilling hard to ensure they can withstand stiff competition and deliver medals for Kenya. The first batch of athletes is scheduled to leave for Tokyo on Tuesday.
The competition, I think my team is motivated. Yeah, we have done everything we had to do.
This is my first World Championship. I've been to Olympics, I've been to the World Indoors, but this is my debut in the World Championship, so we have to work extra hard. So we've been working on speed because endurance is perfect, so we're working on speed.
We have done all that is required for a coach to be able to bring up these Kenyans ambassadors to the level that is expected at the World Championship, and I want to say we are ready now for the World Championships.
Shabana Football Club's top management has unveiled a new roadmap ahead of the upcoming season, expressing confidence that the Torre Bobe boys are ready for the country's top flight campaign. Speaking at Gusii Stadium, the club Secretary General welcomed fans to attend Shabana Day on Sunday, August the 7th, September the 7th.
Ambayo itakuwa ni siku kubwa sana. Tumejiandaa vizuri, tutakuwa na Shabana Day ambapo tutakuwa na series of activities, tutakuwa na entertainment, tutakuwa na ile hali ya kujuana kutoka kwa mashabiki, wachezaji, technical bench na wa leaders. Alafu baadaye kutakuwa na mechi ya kirafiki ambao ni international friendly, ambapo sisi kama mwana Shabana tutakuwa tukimwalika mwana Bamba Jiji kutoka
On to rugby, and KCB RFC have stormed into the Kababerry Sevens quarterfinals after a flawless run in the group stages at the RFUEA grounds in Nairobi. The Bunkers launched their campaign with a 51-0 thrashing of Mean Machine before following up with a commanding 31-0 win over Mombasa RFC. In the quarterfinals of this fifth leg of the 6-series circuit, KCB will face Mwamba RFC. Strathmore chasing a third title meet surprise package Mombasa RFC, making their first quarterfinal of the season. Daystar Falcons take on Menengai Oilers, while Cabra Sugar, the standout side of the day, clash with Catholic Monks. The Kenya Tourism Board has unveiled global athletics icon and fastest woman over the 1,500 meters, Faith Kipyegon, as the new Magical Kenya brand ambassador. The partnership aims to celebrate Kenya's legacy as the home of champions while leveraging Faith's global profile to position the country as a top sports tourism destination. KTB says it will engage Kipyegon through various platforms to amplify Kenya's image, showcasing not just athletics greatness.
Invite all of them, especially my competitors from 1,500 meters. If one day, one time get a chance to come to Kenya, I will be so happy, because we have been like being part of history together, especially last year when I was breaking a world record in 1,500. We came along together and celebrate together. So seeing them come to Kenya, I will be really happy to welcome them.
Faith Kipyegon showing up in the global majors is an opportunity for Kenya to shine. every single sportsman and woman that steps out to the field to defend their position on behalf of the country is a moment of pride for us. It is the only platform that the world stops for a minute to appreciate that there is a country called Kenya.
Well-deserved, Faith. To demystify golf as a game for the elite in rural Kenya, the Kieni Golf Classic entered its second edition at the Nyeri Golf Club, attracting more than 140 players. The annual tournament aims to nurture homegrown talent for future competitions, with women and children encouraged to take part. This year's tee-off saw 70 new entrants join the course compared to last year. Proceeds from the event will go towards support.
And they have been unable to
view
destination, which is Diaspora Connect.